The roasted chicken was still steaming in the center of the dining table when my daughter-in-law Jessica casually erased my place in their lives. She wiped her mouth with a cloth napkin, checked her smartwatch, and looked directly at me. "My mother is moving into the downstairs guest suite next weekend," Jessica announced, her tone completely flat. "She wants to be closer to her favorite shopping district." I paused with my fork halfway to my mouth. For the past 3 years since my husband passed away, I had spent 4 days a week at their house. I picked up my 6-year-old grandson Leo from school, cooked their meals, and folded mountains of laundry while my son David worked late, and Jessica expanded her real estate career. "The downstairs suite is where I sleep when I stay over on late practice nights," I pointed out quietly. I had even bought the mattress and the heavy blackout curtains for that room so I could rest after shuttling Leo around. "You have your own house 20 minutes away, Sophia," Jessica replied, already looking down at her phone. "Mom needs the ground floor. She doesn't like stairs. My mother comes first. That's just how our family works." I shifted my gaze to David. My son kept his eyes firmly glued to his peas, pushing them around his plate with deliberate precision. He had mastered this cowardly silence over his 7 years of marriage. Whenever Jessica made a demand, David simply retreated. "I see," I murmured. I did not raise my voice. I did not demand gratitude for the countless hours I had spent keeping their household afloat. Instead, I carefully set my fork down, folded my napkin, and placed it beside my plate. I stood up and pulled my cardigan off the back of the chair. "You aren't finishing your dinner," David mumbled, finally glancing up. "No, thank you," I answered softly, picking up my purse. "I have things to handle at home." I walked out the front door, leaving the steaming food and the heavy silence behind me. The crisp evening air felt surprisingly refreshing. The drive back to my own 3-bedroom house took exactly 20 minutes. Parking in my quiet driveway, I sat in the car for a moment, letting the memories of the past few years sift through my mind. Jessica's mother, Brenda, was a perfectly healthy woman who spent her days playing tennis and lunching with friends. She simply wanted a free place to stay closer to downtown. Jessica had chosen to displace me to accommodate her mother's social life, expecting me to commute back and forth every day to continue my duties as their unpaid nanny and housekeeper. I walked inside, turned on the kettle, and carried my laptop to the kitchen island. For the last 3 years, I had maintained an automatic transfer of $900 on the first of every month into a joint account I shared with David. The money was meant to cover Leo's swimming lessons, tutoring, and emergency expenses. Recently, however, I noticed the funds were frequently being drained at high-end grocery stores, boutique coffee shops, and local spas. I was subsidizing Jessica's lifestyle while being treated like the help. I logged into my banking's portal. My fingers moved swiftly across the keyboard. With 3 simple clicks, I deleted the recurring transfer. I watched the confirmation screen pop up, feeling a quiet sense of satisfaction. The balance would drop to 0 next month. Next, I opened my streaming accounts. I paid for the premium family plans they used on all their smart TVs. I changed the passwords and selected the option to sign out of all devices. Finally, I reached into my purse, pulled out the shiny brass spare key to David and Jessica's house, and dropped it into a porcelain bowl on my entryway table. The metallic clink echoed in the quiet hallway. I was no longer an on-call employee. I poured my tea entirely at peace. The next morning, the digital clock on my microwave glowed 8:00 a.m. Usually, I would be rushing out the door, battling morning traffic to ensure I arrived at David's house in time to let the plumber in or sign for a package. Instead, I was sitting on my patio, enjoying a second cup of coffee and watching a pair of blue jays in my oak tree. My phone buzzed on the glass table. It was a text from Jessica. "Need you to pick up Leo at 2:30 today. I have a house showing, and David is in meetings. Don't forget to take out the trash." There was no greeting, no question asking if I was available. Just a direct order. I picked up the phone and typed a brief, calm reply. Good morning. I have personal plans today and will not be available. You will need to make other arrangements for Leo and the trash. I hit send and set the phone face down. 10 minutes later, the screen lit up with an incoming call from David. I let it ring twice before answering. Mom, what is going on? David asked, his voice tight with panic. Jessica is freaking out. She can't cancel her showing. Why can't you grab Leo? I am busy today, David, I replied evenly. Busy doing what you're retired. He countered, frustration bleeding into his words. Come on, just this once. You know how stressed Jessica gets when her schedule changes. Managing a schedule is part of running a household, I stated, picking up my coffee mug. I will not be there. So what are we supposed to do? He demanded. You are his parents. I am sure you will figure it out. I hung up the phone. I didn't wait for his guilt trip or his apologies. I had an appointment at the local garden center with my friend Martha, and I fully intended to enjoy picking out new hydrangeas. By Wednesday, my home felt lighter, but my garage was a different story. Over the past few years, David and Jessica had slowly turned my two-car garage into their personal storage facility. When they bought new living room furniture, their old bulky sofa ended up in my garage. When Jessica decided she hated skiing, 2 sets of expensive skis and boots were dumped by my tool bench. There were boxes of outgrown baby clothes, a broken treadmill, and a massive artificial Christmas tree, taking up nearly half my parking space. Since Jessica had made it clear her mother was her priority, I decided to prioritize my own living space. I opened my laptop and found a local storage facility just a few miles from David's house. I rented a 10 by 10 climate-controlled unit, paying for exactly 1 month up front. Then I called a local junk removal and moving company. 2 burly men arrived by noon. I stood in the driveway with a cup of iced tea directing them. Everything against the back wall and the left side goes into the truck, I instructed cheerfully. In less than 2 hours, my garage was swept clean. I could finally park my sedan inside without scraping the doors against a dusty treadmill. Once the movers confirmed the items were safely locked in the storage unit, I sat down at my kitchen table. I wrote a short, polite note on a piece of stationery. David, I am reclaiming my garage space for a new hobby. Your belongings are at Oak Street Storage Unit 42. The first month is paid. The key is enclosed. I placed the note and the silver padlock key into a thick envelope, sealed it, and dropped it in the mail. A heavy burden was literally lifted from my property, but I knew the real storm was brewing. Saturday afternoon arrived with golden sunshine and a cool breeze. I was on my knees in the front flower beds, planting the hydrangeas I had bought with Martha. The soil felt rich and grounding. A familiar silver SUV pulled into my driveway far too fast, the tires crunching loudly against the concrete. David stepped out of the driver's side, clutching the envelope I had mailed him. Jessica marched out of the passenger side, her face flushed with anger. Mom, what is this? David asked, holding up the small silver key. Why did you move all our stuff? I patted down the dirt around a plant, wiped my hands on my gardening apron, and stood up slowly. I needed the space, David. I planned to set up a woodworking bench. You could have called us, Jessica snapped, crossing her arms. We don't have time to deal with a storage unit right now. My mother just moved in, and the house is chaotic. You have 4 weeks before the next payment is due, I answered calmly, picking up my trowel. I thought that was plenty of time. Jessica narrowed her eyes. This is because I gave my mom the downstairs suite, isn't it? You're punishing us. I am simply organizing my home, Jessica. Just as you organized yours, I countered smoothly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to water these roots. We brought Leo, David interjected nervously, gesturing toward the back seat of the SUV. "We have that wine tasting event in the valley today. We really need you to watch him." I looked at my son, noting the desperate hope in his eyes. He fully expected me to cave to open my arms and take my grandson so they could go drink Pinot Noir. "I have a book club meeting in an hour," I said, stepping back toward my front porch. "You should have asked me yesterday. Have a lovely afternoon." I walked inside and locked the screen door, leaving them standing in the driveway. The following Tuesday, I sat in a bustling cafe with Martha. The smell of roasted espresso and fresh pastries filled the air. I recounted the weekend's events over a slice of lemon pound cake. "I can't believe she brought Leo anyway, expecting you to just fold." Martha laughed, shaking her head. "You handled it perfectly, Sophia. They've been treating you like a free convenience store for years." "That's exactly what I murmured, stirring my coffee. "A convenience. But the moment I wasn't convenient anymore, I was discarded." "Well, you have your freedom back." "What are you going to do with it?" Martha asked, her eyes sparkling with curiosity. I leaned back in my chair. For 40 years, I had put my husband first, then my son, and finally, my grandson. I had a healthy retirement fund and no debt. I thought about the glossy travel brochures sitting on my desk at home. My late husband Thomas and I had always talked about taking a cruise through the glaciers of Alaska, but we kept pushing it off for someday. "I'm going to Alaska." I declared the decision, solidifying in my chest right at that moment. Martha beamed. "When?" "Next week," I smiled. I went home and booked a premium balcony suite on a 14-day cruise departing from Seattle. I arranged for a neighbor to water my new hydrangeas and collect my mail. I did not call David. I did not send a text to Jessica informing them of my itinerary. They had made it clear that their household revolved around Brenda now. They didn't need me. On a crisp Thursday morning, I zipped up my suitcase, locked my front door, and took a taxi to the airport. Sitting in the terminal with a glossy magazine and a hot latte, I felt a profound sense of independence. I wasn't running away. I was moving forward. The first of the month arrived while I was standing on the private balcony of my ship, bundled in a wool coat, watching massive chunks of blue ice calve off the Hubbard Glacier into the freezing ocean. The sound was like thunder, raw and magnificent. Back in my cabin, I connected to the ship's Wi-Fi to check my emails. A string of missed call notifications and text messages flooded my screen. "Mom, did your bank get hacked? The transfer didn't go through. Mom, Leo's swim school is calling about the tuition. Call me back. Sophia, the Netflix and Hulu passwords aren't working. Send them to me. Jessica." I listened to one voicemail from David. His voice sounded strained and exhausted. "Mom, where are you? I drove by your house and the car is there, but you aren't answering. The joint account is empty. I had to put the groceries on my credit card. Jessica is furious because her mom refuses to cook or watch Leo. She says she's a guest, not a nanny. Everything is falling apart here. Please call me." I deleted the voicemail. Brenda was enjoying her free downstairs suite, exactly as Jessica wanted. But without my $900, my free labor, and my endless patience, their perfect setup was crumbling. I didn't feel guilty. I felt justified. I had quietly supported the foundation of their lives, and they had mistaken my generosity for obligation. I turned off my phone, grabbed my binoculars, and headed up to the observation deck to look for bald eagles. The problems in suburban Denver were thousands of miles away, and they were no longer mine to solve. 2 weeks later, I returned home. My house smelled faintly of lemon polish and quiet peace. I unpacked my bags, started a load of laundry, and settled into my favorite armchair with a cup of chamomile tea. The peace lasted exactly until noon the next day. The doorbell rang sharply, followed by heavy knocking. I opened the door to find Jessica and David standing on my porch. Jessica looked utterly frazzled. Her hair was pulled into a messy knot, and the dark circles under her eyes were prominent. David simply looked defeated. "Where have you been?" Jessica demanded, pushing past me into the entryway before I could even invite them in. "We have been terrified. You vanished." "I was on a cruise," I replied, calmly closing the door. "I had a wonderful time." "A cruise." Jessica's voice went up an octave. "While we were drowning, you cut off the bank account. You locked us out of the streaming accounts. My mother is complaining because we had to cancel the premium cable." I walked into the living room and sat down. I did not offer them a seat. "I adjusted my finances to reflect reality, Jessica," I stated flatly. "You told me quite clearly that your mother comes first in your household. You gave her the space I helped furnish. You expected me to commute and serve while she rested. I decided that if your mother comes first in your life, then I should come first in mine." Jessica's face turned bright red. "That money was for Leo." "That money was my goodwill," I corrected sharply. "Goodwill that you squandered on boutique groceries and spa days." I checked the statements. "Do not use my grandson as a shield for your greed." Jessica opened her mouth to yell, but a voice finally cut through the tension. "Stop, Jessica," David said. Jessica whipped her head around to stare at her husband. "Excuse me." David stepped forward, his shoulders slumped, but his jaw set tight. He looked at his wife, and for the first time in their marriage, he didn't look down at his shoes. "Stop yelling at my mother." David said, his voice surprisingly firm. "She's right. All of it." "David, whose side are you on?" Jessica gasped. "I'm on the side of reality." He sighed, dragging a hand across his face. "For 3 years, Mom practically ran our house. She funded our extras. And when your mom wanted a free place to live downtown, you pushed Mom out and expected her to just keep working for us. And I let you do it because it was easier than fighting with you." He turned to me, his eyes full of genuine regret. "Mom, I am so sorry. I took you for granted. We both did. When Brenda moved in, she wouldn't even make Leo a sandwich. It's been hell. Please, we need you back." I looked at my son. I loved him dearly, but I was done raising him. "I forgive you, David," I said gently. "But I am not coming back. I am Leo's grandmother, not your employee. You and Jessica need to figure out how to manage the life you built." "But what about the childcare? The expenses?" Jessica stammered, all her previous confidence completely evaporated. "You will have to adjust your budget," I answered, standing up to signal the conversation was over. "Perhaps your mother can start paying rent for that beautiful ground floor suite. Now I have gardening to do. Please let yourselves out." I turned and walked toward the kitchen. I didn't look back as the front door clicked shut. 6 months passed, bringing the vibrant colors of autumn to my neighborhood. My life had settled into a beautiful, selfish rhythm. I joined a weekly pottery class, maintained my flourishing garden, and booked another trip this time to Tuscany with Martha. Through the grapevine, I learned that David and Jessica's household had undergone a massive reality check. Without my monthly deposits and free labor, they had to severely downsize their lifestyle. Jessica had to take a step back at work to pick Leo up from school. The biggest change, however, was Brenda. Faced with the sudden expectation to actually help around the house and contribute to groceries, she abruptly moved out, renting a tiny apartment across town where she wouldn't be bothered with children. The downstairs suite was converted into a playroom. My relationship with my son slowly found a new, healthier dynamic. We no longer shared a bank account, and I never did their laundry again. Every Sunday afternoon, David drove over and dropped Leo off at my house for a few hours. "Look, Grandma, I found a huge acorn," Leo shouted, running across my lawn, his jacket zipped up against the chill. "Put it in the collection basket, sweetie." I smiled, handing him a warm mug of apple cider. David leaned against his car in the driveway, watching us. He looked tired, but grounded. Thanks for taking him today, Mom. We appreciate it. He's always welcome here, I replied. There were no hidden expectations, no silent resentments. When Jessica had declared her mother came first, she thought she was pushing me to the bottom of the ladder. Instead, she had handed me the ladder and I simply climbed out of the pit. I took a sip of my own cider, listening to my grandson laugh as he chased a squirrel. My home was mine. My time was mine. My money was mine. Putting myself first had not destroyed my family. It had finally forced them to respect me. And that was worth everything. If there's one thing Sophia's story reminds us of, it's that we often confuse endless self-sacrifice with love. We give and give and give, hoping our family will eventually see our exhaustion and appreciate us. But sometimes people just get used to the convenience, and they forget the person behind it. Sophia's decision wasn't about revenge or punishing her family. It was simply about realizing her own value and setting a boundary. Sometimes stepping back and saying no is the healthiest thing you can do, not just to protect your own peace, but to allow others the space to grow up and take responsibility for their own lives. It's a gentle reminder that putting yourself first isn't selfish. It's necessary. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to take a step back and redraw your own boundaries? How did you handle it? I'd really love to read your thoughts, so please share your experiences in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story and want to hear more real, grounded stories about navigating family dynamics, finding your voice, and standing your ground, please hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. It really helps the channel grow, and I'd love to have you as part of our community. Thank you so much for listening. Take care of yourselves, and remember, it's never too late to reclaim your time.